Hey, my friend, tonight we do not travel far. We don't cross centuries or walk ancient roads. We stay here, in the now, in the shaking ground, in the silence between explosions, in the bedrooms of children who sleep in shoes just in case they have to run. This is a story with no heroes, only people, people under the sky, a sky that glows red at night. Before we dive into that dark and wild world, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the journey I'm taking you on. And hey, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing where all of you are tuning in from, and it always makes me feel closer to this amazing global community we've built. We begin in the middle of a sentence, because that's how war enters life, not with a beginning, not with a warning, but with a siren that splits the air open. A child in Tel Aviv jerks awake at 3:41 a.m. She clutches her stuffed rabbit. Her mother pulls her by the arm. Shoes, shoes, shoes. They run to the stairwell. She doesn't cry, not yet. That comes later, when it's quiet again. In Tehran, a father smokes near the balcony. The glow of his cigarette flickers. He hears something distant. It doesn't sound right. A roar, then a pause, then windows shatter. He throws himself over his son. There is dust in his mouth. His ears ring for hours. You are never ready for the sound. Not the sound of the bomb, but the sound of everything after. The car alarms, the dogs barking, the scream that might be yours. Time bends under bombs. Minutes stretch. Days blur. You forget what you were talking about before the siren. You forget your coffee, your book, your plan to call your brother. You only remember the weight of your child in your arms as you ran. This war does not choose soldiers. It does not wait for uniforms. It falls on rooftops, on playgrounds, on the wrong side of town, and sometimes the right side too. In Israel, teenagers watch the Iron Dome streak across the sky. They cheer when it explodes a rocket mid-air. Then they fall silent, because that rocket had a direction, and they remember it might have been their street. In Iran, families cram into underground garages. They bring blankets, water, a radio. They joke sometimes, because laughter is defiance, because silence feels like surrender. But the jokes dry up when the lights flicker. No one speaks about fear. They speak about windows, about how to tape them. They share old tricks. Put a chair under the door. Don't stand near glass. Hide your documents in a plastic bag. There is an intimacy in shared fear. Neighbors knock on each other's doors. Are you okay? Did your son get home? Do you need bread? And for a moment, the war brings something soft, but it doesn't last. The mind can only take so much. Sleep becomes an act of rebellion. You sleep dressed, with one eye open, with one ear tuned for sirens. Children begin to draw craters. They name the missiles. They memorize the sounds. That one was farther. This one was closer. That one made the floor jump. The body adapts. It shouldn't, but it does. You learn what a 5-second window means. You learn the difference between red alert and red smoke. You learn to count the seconds between the flash and the sound. And you pray the count is long. In bomb shelters, people sit shoulder to shoulder. They avoid eye contact, or they seek it. Both are acts of survival. A teenage boy holds his mother's hand. He hasn't done that in years. A grandmother rocks a child who isn't hers. The baby doesn't cry. No one cries loudly in a shelter. It's like a rule. And in the silence that follows each blast, a question hangs in the air. Was that the last one? Of course it wasn't, but you pretend. There is no instruction manual for living like this. You invent rituals. You check the news obsessively. You switch between apps as if the truth lives in the cracks between them. You check your phone every 5 seconds for updates, for your daughter's message, for your mother's voice note. And when the phone doesn't buzz, you imagine why. Some try to leave. Most can't. Borders are closed. Flights are canceled. And somewhere inside, you know the danger is no longer just outside. It's in your lungs, your blood, your sleep. You begin to dream in alarms. Even when it's quiet, your ears twitch. Even when you smile, your hands tremble. The war rewrites you. In Israel, cafes open again. People sip coffee under umbrellas, but they sit facing the street, just in case they need to run. In Iran, weddings are postponed. The halls are too risky, too loud, too bright. But love doesn't stop. Couples hold hands a little tighter, kiss faster, say I love you more often, because they've seen what happens when you wait. And through it all, the grief comes in whispers, not screams, whispers. A friend didn't answer his phone. A cousin's building is rubble. A boy you used to babysit, gone. And yet the world keeps turning. The news moves on. The politicians speak. The experts analyze. But the people carry the weight. The war lives in their backs, in their muscles, in the soft spot where laughter used to be. And still, they keep going. Because what else can they do? Because life, even under bombs, wants to continue. Even here, even now. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Even when the sky is blue. Even when the street is quiet. Even when the last siren was 2 days ago. The muscles stay tight. The chest hollow. The breath shallow. In the markets of Esfahan, old men sit in the shade, drinking sweet tea from cracked glasses. Their eyes watch the sky, not the stalls. Because the new noise, the drone noise, it doesn't sound like anything natural. It's like a fly that never lands. It buzzes above memory. It erodes peace. In a hospital in Haifa, the generator hums beneath the walls. There is no electricity, not consistently. The doctor rubs his forehead, draws insulin from a vial with trembling hands. He hasn't been home in 36 hours. His daughter sends voice notes. Abba, I miss you. Abba, is the sky red again? He doesn't answer. He can't promise safety. No one can. In Shiraz, a girl draws a picture of a house on fire. But it's not her house. It's her neighbor's. She doesn't know their names. She only knows the flames. Children speak in metaphors. They say things like, the night has teeth, or the wind has eyes. Their drawings tell stories the adults are too tired to hear. Grief takes many forms. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like rage. Sometimes it's just a woman staring at a broken window for an hour, not speaking, not moving, just listening, in case it happens again. You count strange things during war, the hours of sleep, the cracks in the ceiling, the number of seconds it takes to reach the basement. People become mathematicians of survival. They calculate odds. This block was hit twice. That one not at all. They move based on patterns that don't exist, because randomness is unbearable, because logic gives illusion, and illusion, however thin, is better than despair. In Jerusalem, a man packs a go bag every night. He unpacks it every morning. He's never used it, but he can't sleep without it nearby. It contains a flashlight, a passport, a photograph of his daughter, an inhaler, a pen with no ink. He doesn't know why the pen matters, only that it does. In Mashhad, the mosques are full, not just with the faithful, but with the frightened. People pray. Some weep. Some sit quietly, just needing space that still feels sacred. In Tel Aviv, the beaches are empty. The sea still moves, still sings, but no one listens. The water feels too exposed, too open. You learn to hug differently in war. Not too long, not too soft. You hug with urgency, with purpose. You memorize the texture of shoulders. You don't know when you'll feel them again. And then the small mercies. A delivery driver who knocks gently. A dog that doesn't bark during the siren. A stranger who says, "It's okay to cry." These things, they matter more than you'd think. Because war doesn't just destroy buildings. It erodes tenderness. It steals the softness from language. It makes you forget the sound of your own laugh. Some try to write. They keep journal. They scrawl poems on scraps of newspaper, not for history, not for others, but to prove they are still thinking, still human, still more than fear. One man writes only one sentence each day. That's all he can manage. He reads them back at night. We're still here. The kettle whistled today. I saw a pigeon, and it didn't care. The pigeon becomes his symbol. It does not panic. It does not hide. It walks across rubble like nothing has changed. How do you raise children in this? You lie. You say, this is temporary. This is rare. This will end soon. You sing louder than the sirens. You build blanket forts in the basement. You invent games like guess the explosion distance or find the crack in the wall. You teach your child to smile even when their hands are shaking. In both countries, the schools are closed. Lessons continue over text messages. Teachers send math problems alongside prayers. Some assignments are never returned. Sometimes it's because the internet failed. Sometimes it's because something worse happened. No one asks. No one pushes. A kind of quiet respect grows. The silence of not knowing and not needing to know. The grief of war is heavy, but the waiting is heavier. You wait for news. You wait for water. You wait for the next strike. And the worst part? The mind begins to normalize it. It begins to expect it. When it's quiet, you feel uneasy. You think, maybe something worse is coming. Peace becomes the thing you fear because it feels like a trick. And still, life happens. Someone bakes bread. Someone sings softly in the stairwell. Someone kisses a forehead as if it were the last time, just in case it is. You begin to notice small beauties, the way ash falls like snow, the way a cat curls beside a sleeping child, the way a door creaks open and you realize it's not a missile, just the wind. There is resilience in these moments, a kind of holy stubbornness. People refuse to be only victims. They garden in window sills. They write silly jokes on shelter walls. They name each other's scars. And above it all, the sky remains. Sometimes blue, sometimes black, sometimes on fire, but always there, always watching, always holding the silent prayers of people who did not ask for this war, who do not deserve this fear, who only want to sleep through the night and wake up to the sound of nothing. The worst thing is that you start adapting. You adjust your life around the sounds of war. You wash dishes with one ear open. You take your showers fast, not because you're late, but because you're afraid. Afraid that something might fall while the water runs and you won't hear it coming. You learn to measure time in the gaps between bombings, not days, not hours, but since the last strike. And how long until the next one? In Ashkelon, a man opens his phone to scroll, but his fingers tremble. He doesn't know what he's looking for, only that it's not another video of smoke. He sees a photo from last summer. He's smiling, sunburned, holding a beer by the sea. He barely recognizes himself. In Tabriz, a mother draws blackout curtains closed, not because of the sun, but because of the drones. Light draws attention. Attention draws fire. She irons her son's school uniform anyway, though school is closed. Though the backpack sits untouched, she says it's for when things go back to normal. But what is normal? The memory blurs. In war, even love changes shape. It becomes sharper, urgent, ragged. Couples argue over small things, not because of anger, but because everything feels bigger now. Every second matters. Don't forget to text me. Means I need to know you're alive. I need to know you didn't step out at the wrong moment. And sometimes people fall in love just to feel something, anything. A kiss in a stairwell, a whispered confession in a shelter, a palm pressed against another in darkness. No flowers, no candlelight, only the rush of heartbeats against sirens. Some break under it, the pressure, the waiting, the randomness. A boy in Jerusalem throws his phone at the wall. His girlfriend hasn't replied. She's probably just asleep. But his mind races. What if? A girl in Guam starts wearing her headphones all day, not to listen, but to muffle the world, to drown out the thuds she now hears even when they're not there. Phantom sounds, phantom fears. The mind invents echoes when it can't bear silence. Everywhere, people sleep in shoes. They keep their wallets near the door. They check their gas tanks before bed. They memorize evacuation routes they hope never to use. Hope becomes a fragile, guilty thing. You hope for a quiet night, but feel selfish when others don't get one. You feel shame when you eat a warm meal while someone else is burying a friend. Guilt grows like mold in the corners of the mind, and still the world outside moves on. Tourists cancel flights. Headlines scroll past. Leaders speak from podiums. But the people under the sky, they whisper to each other in hallways. They share stories, not strategies. Did you hear about that teacher? She covered her students with her body. They all survived. In trauma, stories become oxygen. You hold on to kindness like it's fire. You repeat names so they don't vanish. You say, "That boy from the bakery," "the woman with the silver scarf," "the man who gave water to the medics." You name the humanity because the war tries to erase it. And in between it all, you still live. You still pay bills. You still feed pets. You still brush your teeth in the mirror, even when you hate what you see, because you're still here. That alone is a rebellion. Some people go numb, not out of choice, but necessity. A father stops watching the news. He listens to music instead. Old Iranian love songs, not because he's happy, but because he wants to remember what joy used to feel like. A woman in Haifa begins baking obsessively, cookies, pita, spiced cakes. She gives them to neighbors, not because they ask, but because it's something she can control, because the scent of cinnamon drowns out the dust for just a moment. We think of war as noise, but it's also silence. It's the absence of a friend's voice. It's the unanswered text. It's the ringing phone that never connects. You start praying even if you never used to, not to gods, but to anything that will listen. You whisper things like, "Let the next one fall far away. Let me hear my brother's voice again. Let there be enough time." And when you wake up to quiet, true quiet, you don't trust it. You lie still, waiting for the boom. And when it doesn't come, you cry, not from joy, from exhaustion, because peace after this feels like a trick. You keep the shelter bag packed anyway. You keep the emergency shoes by the door. You keep the key in your pocket, even inside your own house. Because once the earth shakes, you never quite stop bracing. And when people ask, "How are you?" you say, "I'm fine." But what you mean is, "I'm still breathing. My building is still standing. My family is still here." And that, for now, is enough. There's a moment after the siren ends, before the impact, that feels like the longest second in the world. Your breath catches. Your mind goes blank. You become pure sensation, the smell of dust, the coldness of concrete, the damp weight of someone's hand gripping yours too tightly. Then the blast comes, far or near. It doesn't matter. It shakes everything. And still, life doesn't stop. In a shelter in Beersheba, a teenager hums softly to herself. It's the same song her mother used to sing during blackouts. Something from a 1990s cartoon. The melody is thin, off-key, but it fills the space between the sobs. Next to her, a woman prays, not in Hebrew, not in Arabic, but in Farsi, soft and rhythmic. She's an immigrant, a grandmother. Her voice trembles on the name of her son, who hasn't answered her messages since last week. The war has no boundaries, not of language, not of age. It takes what it wants and then keeps taking. In Karaj, west of Tehran, a boy plays with a paper airplane. He throws it again and again into the air. It always lands the same way, nose bent, wings dented. Still, he picks it up, smooths it out, tries again. He doesn't speak much anymore, but the way he launches that fragile plane says everything. In cities on both sides of the border, rooftops become forbidden places, too visible, too exposed. And yet some climb anyway, just for a glimpse of the horizon, just to feel wind that isn't born of explosions. A young man in Tel Aviv records the sky on his phone, not the bombs, not the smoke, just clouds. He says, "If I survive this, I want to remember the sky." In Yazd, a woman boils water to make tea, though no one will drink it. The habit is stronger than logic. She lines up chipped cups as if guests will walk in at any moment instead of sirens. War makes rituals holy. You sweep the floor, even if it's covered in ash. You brush your teeth with bottled water, even when there's no mirror left. You light a candle, not for beauty, but for light during blackout. Every act becomes resistance. In the darkness, children ask strange questions. Can bombs smell us? What happens to dreams when the roof is gone? Will my toys remember me if I die? You try to answer, but some truths are too cruel to name. So you say, "No, they can't smell us." Dreams wait for you, and your toys love you always. In Jerusalem, a woman writes letters to her unborn daughter. She's 7 months pregnant. Her husband is on reserve duty. She hasn't seen him in 12 days. She writes on scraps of paper, receipts, backs of old envelopes. Today we heard sirens 3 times. You kicked when I sang. I think you'll have your father's stubbornness. She tucks the notes in a jar, hides it under the floorboard, just in case. In Mashhad, a man records voice messages to his mother. He doesn't send them. The network is down again, but speaking makes him feel less alone. He says, "I made soup. I'm scared, but I'm okay. Remember when we visited the shrine in winter?" Memory becomes a shelter when concrete ones fail. Not all losses are loud. Some come quietly, a shutter blown off, a favorite book soaked in firewater, a photograph turned to dust. You mourn them like people, because They held your story. War steals more than lives. It steals context. It makes the future feel impossible and the past too painful to revisit. And yet, people improvise peace. In Netanya, a man teaches his children to meditate. He says, breathe like the trees, breathe like the ocean. Though they've never seen the ocean, not really, but it calms them. And for a moment, the sirens fade. In Kazvin, two women build a shelter under a staircase. They line it with blankets, draw smiley faces on the wall. They pretend it's a secret clubhouse, not a last resort. They share stories of weddings that never happened, of dreams they postponed, of recipes passed down without measurements. These things, they are survival too. No one teaches you how to comfort someone while both of you are shaking, but somehow you do. A hand on a shoulder, a nod, a shared bottle of water, a blanket passed across a floor, a look that says, I'm scared too, but we're here. And somewhere in between fear and fatigue, there is still love. People propose marriage. People make promises. People whisper, I love you in stairwells, basements, phone calls, not because the world is ending, but because they want to believe it isn't. And still they look for beauty in graffiti that reads, we are more than this war, in flowers blooming through broken pavement, in music shared over static radios, because if beauty exists, then hope can survive. And if hope survives, then maybe, just maybe, the night will pass. Maybe the sky will be blue again, not the blue of death, but of mourning. Night has its own kind of terror, not because it's darker, but because it's quieter. In the stillness, every creak becomes a warning, every car door a possible ending, every blink of light in the distance a maybe. People stop sleeping normally. Sleep becomes a series of collapses. You pass out, not rest. You curl up in corners, fully dressed, shoes on, bag ready. You don't even close your eyes all the way. You listen, always. Even in your dreams, you're listening. In Eilat, a man builds a small altar from broken tiles. He doesn't believe in God, not really, but he places candles there anyway. One for his wife, one for his daughter, one for the strangers who won't come back. He lights them in order every night and stares until the wax softens. He doesn't pray, but the silence feels like something sacred. In Shiraz, a girl collects feathers, pigeon feathers. She glues them into a notebook, calls them the soft parts of war. She says they fall after every explosion, little gray ghosts drifting down from rooftops. She's 6 years old. She doesn't draw the blasts. Only feathers, only softness. In war, you learn to speak with your eyes. A glance means hurry. A blink means wait. A long look means I'm not okay, but keep going. Language becomes a luxury. You don't always have time to explain, so you hold hands instead. You nod. You sit quietly together and that's enough. In Ramat Gan, a boy holds his grandmother's arm during every siren. She has dementia. She thinks the sounds are thunderstorms. She asks, "Is it raining again?" He says, "Yes, a loud rain." He doesn't correct her. Sometimes mercy is a lie. On the outskirts of Isfahan, a man breaks down when the generator fails, not because of the dark, but because he was heating water to shave. He wanted to look human again, to remember his face before the tension carved itself into his jaw. And now the mirror is useless, and the night stretches on. The mundane becomes mythic. A working faucet feels like a miracle. A phone call that connects feels like resurrection. A joke told at the right moment can carry more power than a speech. In shelters, people trade memories like currency. Do you remember the beaches? Do you remember concerts? Do you remember your wedding? They speak of before like it's a place they once visited, a home whose door is now locked. But still, they talk, because stories are bridges. You can walk across them, if only for a minute, to somewhere gentler. In a bombed-out building in Holon, a group of volunteers hang lanterns, not electric, not practical, paper ones. They say it's for the children, so the space feels less like a tomb. Children draw stars on them, cats, hearts, a blue circle that might be Earth. They hang in the hollowed-out space like little galaxies, and for an hour the air shimmers. In Bandar Abbas, an old musician plays an oud by candlelight. His house is cracked, the windows gone, but the sound carries. Neighbors gather. They say nothing. He plays slow, ancient songs that feel like remembering. Someone cries, someone laughs, someone just closes their eyes and listens, because even under bombs, music survives, and people fall apart in strange ways. A man in Haifa yells at a coffee cup. It's shattered in his hand. It was his favorite. He screams for 20 minutes while his wife holds him. It wasn't about the cup. It never is. A woman in Rasht finds herself brushing her daughter's hair over and over, even after it's smooth, even when the girl has fallen asleep. She keeps brushing, not because of knots, but because of control, because here, in this moment, she can keep something in order. People begin preparing for after, even though after is just a word. They stack canned food. They write lists. They hide cash in walls. They plan routes to cities that may not exist by then. But hope, twisted as it is, refuses to die, because even a broken tree grows toward light. Even a scorched field dreams of rain, and even the most frightened heart dares to believe that peace, true peace, could come again. Someday, not now, not tonight, but maybe.